Alright, Catanians, I'm going old school on y'all today. So this machine is older than all of us. So you saw me make the copper hex in the last video. So what we're doing here is, you actually see I've jumped ahead a little bit. I've made a brass insert and I stamped or milled into it the number 8 with the 5 dots underneath, the 5 probability dots underneath it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make 2 more of these brass inserts. One for our ore hex, and then one for our steel hex that we will paint light green for sheep. So what we got to do, and what I've done already, is right on the inside I've measured, and it may be hard to see, but the very front from our copper brick hex video, I went down 40 thousandths on the very front, the shallow wider part. That is 515 thousandths of an inch wide. This piece here is about 530-ish thousandths, so I have to turn it down, just skim it just a little bit. And only 40 thousandths deep, which is maybe the thickness of your fingernail, maybe a little bit more, maybe 2 fingernail thicknesses. Now, and then the next part below that, kind of deeper into the hex, is the hole that I drilled into with a drill bit. 465 thousandths of an inch. We're gonna make that just about an 1/8 inch long. You're gonna see the process here as we go along. Put those safely up there. We have our 0 to 1 mic, so we can measure to the nearest thousandth of an inch. And you can see for this piece, my insert for the 8 brick, once I press it in there, I milled it flat and then did my number thing. On the back you can see it's nice and flat too. Got a little shine to it, so that's what we're going for. We want it to be a tight fit so it won't come out of there when you're playing the game and someone flips the table in disgust when you destroy them. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first we start off by doing a facing cut. I already did one. I will do one more just for good measure and show you guys on video. So initially what I do is I take my tool while the machine's running, I touch it to the very outside face and then crank the tool back with this dial here, which will crank the whole compound straight back out. I'll take this hand, I'll feed it in that way to feed this whole thing over just a little bit. And then we'll take another face cut here, so kick it on. And I'll use this lever right here. So the whole thickness of our stainless piece is 150 thousandths of an inch. If you look, you see the big 0, then you see the little 0, and the little 0 is past 1, so you know you're a little over 100 thousandths, but not quite to 2, so you're not quite to 200 thousandths, so you must be somewhere in between. And there's little dashes in between the 1 and the 2, so we're exactly 2 dashes past 1 and not quite to 2, so we're at 150 thousandths, and that is how you read the calipers. So we'll set that down, and when you think about it, when we press our piece in, there's a little bit of a shoulder back there, which is smaller than the 465 thousandths drill bit that we used. So we're not going to want to machine our insert piece be full 150 thousandths of an inch length, so we're just going to go just a little bit less, maybe 140 thousandths. So that way, we know it'll press all the way in, and that our stepped up sides on the very edge, that's only 40 thousandths of an inch thick, will fit right nice and perfectly into the upper section here of our hole. So what we'll do is I'll crank my tool in, blow the chips off, and I'll touch the tool right to the face of my material. And then as I crank it out, you notice there is a very, very faint line. It's right down here. Yep, there's my line. And then, since I've done that, I'll zero it out, and then I'll crank it over 140 thousandths. Remember, I'm cranking the big handle to move the whole compound to the left. And we're at, don't worry about the negative. I'm gonna go, that's 60. And that's 90, that's 100, remember 140. I'll actually stop it at 138.5 because on our final pass, to get our finishing thickness size, I'll just go a hair more just to make sure it's squared out all the way to the end, then back the tool out. So we'll kick it to this, and then we'll zero it out here, and then we'll run the machine, and I'll come in with my smaller dial, and I'll just touch the material, just to have a reference point. I'll come back out with it, touch it there, and let's just feed in 10 thousandths to start because the material is not much bigger than the size we need. And this piece right here is going to have to be pushed in. That way, when I kick this lever up to feed it over this way, if that lever was out just the way this machine is set up, it would actually feed the table over that way, but we need to go this way. So what you do is kick it up. Bigger than 140 thousandths, so that's going to work actually. So we're going to check our size with our 0 to 1 mics. And all we do here is I'm going to set you up over here. I think I dropped the piece of wood. We're doing it live, Catanians. Then I'm going to take my 0 to 1 mics. And if I get it just right, you might hear the mic squeak a little bit on the brass. But it doesn't always do that, but it's definitely a feel thing. Okay, so no squeak, but it felt good. LOL. So if we look at our size, we're at 520 thousandths because we're just past the 5, and then on the side here, the 20 line matches up. So we need to go to 515. So we're going to go 5 more thousandths and be good on that size. Okay, so we just made another pass at 5 thousandths. And if I go in once more, look at that. That's actually going to be perfect. So we're looking at just a hair under 515 thousandths. That's going to press in real nice. All right, and now we'll check. And here's the thing, since this size we're working on is so small, we're actually not going to be able to fit the 0 on mics because of the thickness of the rod there. It's just not going to get a good grab on it. So what we're going to do is take our calipers. We're just going to have to be very careful because as our calipers, the deeper the jaw goes, it gets to a very much thinner point. So this is actually going to be perfect. We're just going to have to make sure, I mean, it's not going to be as accurate as the mics, for sure. Micrometer is always more accurate than the caliper, but for this application, it's going to be good enough. As I work it off of the material, and I take a look, we are at, it looks like we're right on. No, we are just a hair over 475. We're looking at, let's see, match up with 475 plus 2 more. So we're at 470, no, sorry, 3 more, 478. We're at 478, it's hard to see, but the 3 dash off of the 0, the 3 dash matches up with the dash above it. Because if you're in between one of the dashes in between your numbers here, any number from 0 to 25, any one of those dashes will match up. And that will tell you if it's 5 over 475, 17 over 475, etc., etc. So we're at 478 off of 465. It's going to be 13 thousandths. So let's take that. I'm just going to feed it in and watch it. Till it gets to right there. Kick it back out. So because our turning tool is so rounded, if it came to a much sharper, finer point, we could rely on, when it touches the tool, that 0 every time, but because it's rounded, each time you feed it in more, it changes where the tip of the tool touches the material based on, you know, your digital readout. It's just a little different each time. So let me take a depth measurement because I want to be sure that I'm not going in more than 100 thousandths. So I'll put this on the back side of your caliper. You have a depth measurement. As it comes out, we'll touch it there. And we'll this front section is about 108 thousandths long. And the overall depth of our piece down to the bottom is 125 thousandths. So that means that the 40 thousandths piece we're going for is gonna, we want it to sit all the way into that front section there. So we were gonna have to take, so 40 off of 125 is gonna leave us with 85 thousandths of the piece to press down in there towards the bottom. So we may actually have to face this a little more. This particular piece, they're all maybe slightly different. So we're just have to work with that. We can fix that. We can just face the front a couple times. Bring that down a little bit shorter so we can press all the way into both fits on our ore hex. So let's go ahead and do that. We got this, Catanians. Like butter. Okay, this next part I can't show you because I need 2 hands for it. We're going to take our small triangular file. We're going to file just the burrs, the sharp edges on both ridges here. See, I just put took off the slight burr, put a slight chamfer with the file on both edges. So now, let's take our chuck. For safety, you can always step on the brake, so that way the machine doesn't actually kick back on. If I kick it out here, I might be doing it with one hand. Yes, I can break it loose. And then we shall take this piece right out of there. And now all we gotta do is go cut off in the saw. So let me take you, over there. This is the little stand you guys sit on because there's a kickstand on my phone case. And what else? I'll take, I want this guy. No, I may not need that guy actually. I may just use, I have all different ways of grabbing material. I'll probably use this guy, the big smooth jaw clamp. And let's take a walk. So we got various things going on in the shop. This, that, those, and the others. Now whenever I'm making little Catan pieces for you guys, I always end up using the vertical bandsaw. It's very nice. It's got a light I can kick on. Lets me see what I'm doing. I'll put you guys on the stand here. Not the jerry stand, don't worry. I'll take my piece and I will crank the handle in of my smooth jaw vice grips. They use these a lot for grabbing things when people are welding, these type of jaws, these type of vice grips, or for various other blue collar jobs. Get it just tight enough. Okay. So then what I always like to do is take a piece of wood, put it right behind the material I'm cutting. That way there's no worry of the fingers getting close to the saw, because you do not want to do that. All right, so let's go in. Okay, so what you saw me do there is I put it on top of this plate here, because there's actually a gap. I'll show you. Down in here, and my piece is so thin, I didn't want it to fall in the gap and then lose it, and then spend all this time trying to fish it out of there, when I could be just making more metal Catan hexes. So now that that's finished, kick the light back off, bring this guy and my material, if I'm gonna make another one, back over with me. And again, we're doing it on the fly, Catanians. You know how we do. There's the torch. You see me use the torch. That got a big amount of views on the YouTube short, so I'm happy people enjoyed seeing that. Okay, we'll take our ore hex. So let's go over to a smooth jaw vise. We're gonna use this mill later, but if I take you over to the smooth jaw vise, mount you on the wooden block, looking down here at the vise. I can make sure you press it in on the right side now. So this is the correct side. And we're going to take our brass insert and we're going to kind of, if we can, start it down in there. We'll lay it down in there like so. It actually started a little bit, so it must have a little, yeah, it's a little bit of a loose fit on the bottom part, but the top part should press in real nice. And I'll lay it down in here in the vise, and if all goes well, they should be joined as one. Okay, so it went in pretty good actually. That top fit was a lot better. Now I think what is happening is the brass piece is bottomed out at the bottom, so maybe I could have faced a little bit more. So I'm just gonna give it a little bit more of a press, and then it should be holding itself in there nice and tight. And I can just mill off the top as planned. So just like with our copper brick piece, we put the brass insert in, and I took it over to the mill, and once I had it up on parallels, I grabbed it with the vise jaw, and let me show you, where's that tool right here. I use this tool right here, it's got a big surface area, and I just went right over the top, taking light cuts to get my smooth finish. So I'm gonna lay that there in preparation. And then for my, oh, here it is right here. For the number 8, I got real creative. David George Catan even liked it when I put it in the Unorthodox Chat on his Discord. I took, firstly, is it in here? Yes, it is. Don't drop your end mills, because they are hardened, but so they will break if you drop them. But they are great at cutting metal. So I took this guy and I just touched it down into. That's the outer circle you see there on both of them. And then for the inner circle, you see the inner circle, the very, very center got left untouched. And how I was able to do that is I found this, is this an 1/8 inch? I believe it is. It's an 1/8 inch end mill. Let me take you over to the lighted section. And it's got a very, very tiny hole right in the middle. So what I did is when I touch down that hole, it doesn't take any material off. So I get a little bit of a raised dimple right in the center, and it helps make it easier to read the number 8 a little bit better. And then for the small probability dots, I simply took a very tiny number 2 center drill and just touched down in 5 different places, measured them out nice and evenly. And that's how I was able to do that. So Catanians, let's go make another brass insert, finish it off, and then that'll be our update for this metal Catan set video. Catanians, let's kick that flash on. So this is what we got going. So we got 3 pieces. Starting on the left, it's gonna be the sheep hex with the stainless insert for our number. Then in the middle, we have our brass wheat hex with the stainless insert for our number. And then we have our ore hex. It's gonna be getting a brass insert for a number. So brass means 8 or 6, stainless means one of the other lower probability numbers below that. And we have our fly cutter here, and we're making passes. You can see I already got ahead of the game here. So this insert was sticking up a little bit higher than the other two because I cut it a little longer. That's just the way it happened on the saw. And so what I've been doing is I've been taking it down, and I took it down to where I started to pick up taking material off of the brass piece. So now I'm gonna get low enough to get to this other stainless piece on our sheep hex. And once we get to that point, I'm gonna take it all the way down so that each insert is flush, nice, sits flat and even with each hex that it is pressed into. So I already have fed up another 15 thousandths. You only want to take very light cuts with this cutter, and you're spinning it at about 200 RPM. So what we're going to do is we're going to kick it on. I already have a little bit of oil onto the stainless piece, and I suspect it will not hit the sheet piece yet. Oh, actually, you know what? It will. So it's probably just hitting it by 5 or so thousandths. So I put a little oil on that, and let's crank this baby all the way over, doing our nice light face cuts, feeding it in by turning the table to feed the table over into the cutter. We're just going to take it nice and slow all the way through, and this is exciting. We're going to have 3 hexes almost done. Now we're not going to do the numbers today. We're going to do that in the next video because I got plans tonight. Might be playing some pool. If you can hear me over the noise of the cutter. So now we can crank over to the next insert. So this is exciting stuff, Catanians. We're getting closer. I mean, of course, we got to make 19 hexes. Don't get me wrong. But at least we got progress and a plan. And the plan is in motion as we speak. You see a little smoke coming up? That's just the tool getting a little bit hot, interacting with the oil. The oil's going to keep it cool and also give us a nice little finish. You don't really need oil on brass, especially at this light of a cut. So I'm just going to go in with it, see what it should do. Always fun to have some brass chips flying around. And then because this is not the last cut, I'm just going to run the cutter back over. And look at that. Okay, so I'll run it back over each insert. But on the last cut, I will crank the table down so we keep our nice finish. Very good. Let me crank the machine off. Hit the brake. So the other thing I want to tell you guys is once I do my final cut and all these inserts are flush with their hexes that they are pressed into, I measured the thickness of each hex to the precise thousandths of an inch. So this one is 151 thousandths of an inch, the sheep hex. The wheat hex is 149 thousandths of an inch, and the ore hex is 147 thousandths of an inch. So what I did is I staggered them with the thickest one on this end first. So that way when I get down flush with my number inserts, I'm actually gonna take the very slightest, about 2 thousandths of an inch cut off of the sheep hex, or maybe I might kick it to 3 thousandths because I want them all to be nice and evenly thick, or evenly thin, if you will, because look at how thin these guys are. So that's why you want to take real light cuts and go real slow, because I don't want to risk these getting moved around in the vise, because then we're going to have a bad time. Either something's going to break or it's going to mess up my finish. So that is where we're at, Catanians. Numbers being machined into each hex. Next video on the next Metal Catan set update. I appreciate you guys and gals for watching. Words, 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 words. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. More Metal Catan videos to come. And epilogue to this video, look at that. I took the very slightest 2 thousandths off of this. It was actually maybe 2.5, and it actually took off just a skim, very nice skim face cut off the rest. And so our numbers actually look pretty seamlessly incorporated into each hex, which I do like. So now we'll have to do a slight deburr again on the outer edge of each hex, but we're looking pretty solid here, Catanians. And like I said, number update coming next video.